Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for tonight. And with me, as always, is Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Yo, yo, yo.
What's up? No, and in the background, as you may hear, is Otis and Molly. They've been acting up quite a lot tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the hounds of hell.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully they will calm down a little bit. So I apologize, folks, if they interrupt your listening pleasure. But hopefully they'll be quiet. Anywho, that being said, how are you guys? How's your week been? What's going on? And all that good jazz.
My week's been not too bad. It's been, decent amount of stuff this week. Went out last night with Tony and his wife Jeannie and some other friends for Tony's birthday, which was fun. We went to dinner first, and then we just jumped a couple from bar to bar, basically, and just hung out, had a good time, and it's nice because there's no real pressure there, because we've gotten to where it's basically here's what we're gonna do. If you want to come, cool. If not, that's fine. We're still gonna just go and have a good time, So it's a lot less stressful that way, Also, I think it helps keep from feelings getting hurt a little bit too. I guess whatever. Yeah, that was fun though. Earlier in the week, I went and got I got the battery replaced in my iPhone, which was an interesting experience because I don't go in the mall much, because there's no reason for me to, really. I don't shop at most of the places that are in there. I don't live that close to it, It's not that far, but it's also not that close, So there's kind of just no reason for me to go over there generally. But I had to take the phone to the Apple store, which is in the mall. And I picked the wrong side of the mall to go in, so I walked the whole length of the mall. And when I walked into the mall, I had about 3 minutes to get to my appointment. So luckily it wasn't a big deal. They weren't that busy, that was super easy, in and out, whatever. And the mall wasn't busy, which was nice. But I sat in the parking lot. It was a really nice day out, and I sat in the parking lot and, or in the car in the parking lot, and got my right arm sunburnt pretty good.
Oh, I hate
Yeah.
that happen.
Cause it was like 50 degrees out, so you don't feel it.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, what a nice day, cause it was a little cool, but whatever, for me it's fine. And, then later on I'm sitting here at my computer and I'm like, man, my arm is hot. And then I was like, wow, my arm is red. And then I hold my forearms by each other and I was like, yep, I got some sunburn. So yeah, that was, that was fun. 2 days later it's back to normal basically. That paleness that everyone expects from me. This week decided that the higher dose of the Wellbutrin was not. I didn't like how it was making me feel. I was really nauseous. I was shaky. My hands were shaking again. And luckily, I still had the lower dose of it, so I just switched back to that. And I have to call my doctor tomorrow, but I feel better today than I have, in the last few days. So that's clearly not the thing for me. Like I said, luckily I had the lower dose I could just switch to because, you're not supposed to cold turkey any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to do that, but I was like, well, I have the lower dose. And when I went up a dose, I didn't have to ease into it. It was what I was taking, and he was just like, just start taking the other. He's like, because there's not a huge transitional difference, and there's not. Like, stepping down, I've done it like 2 days now, and I don't feel any weirdness or anything, So that's all been pretty good.
How long did you get the higher dosage? Like, how many days?
I took almost a whole bottle of it, so it was about a month-ish, somewhere in that range.
Oh, wow, yeah, you gave it a
Yeah, I gave it a fair go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like I just tried it for a couple days and was like, meh. No, I gave it a good go, and I was just nauseous too many days. And again, the shakiness, it drives me crazy because I can't hold a pen, or like, I tried to pour, I can't remember what it was. I went to pour something the other day and like just splashed it all over the place because I couldn't get my hand to stop. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't want this,
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, when you're dealing with medicine for mental health, it's all about quality of life.
Yeah.
And you want that's what you're striving for, is the best quality of life you possibly can have. And if that's interfering, if the side effects are interfering with that, then by no means should you stay on it.
Right. And that's the thing. It was like, what I was getting positive from the medicine was a little less meh feeling, but it wasn't like, holy crap, I feel so much, it wasn't like some major difference. It was a slight difference. And the big downside, and then the downsides are I feel nauseous every day, and occasionally my hands or legs would shake. Yeah. When you do the plus minus chart on that, it's an easy choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I gotta call the doctor tomorrow and basically just notify him that I did this because, I'm sure he'll probably be like, okay, cool, whatever, cause I still have a prescription for the other, so I can just switch back to that one and, until I see him again or whatever. But it's been, I've overall been in a much better mood. And, there's some outside factors on that I'm not going to get into on here, but, it's been nice. I'm finding myself in the last week, someone asked me how I was doing and I said really good once, which is not like me. Mm-hmm. And I actually told somebody that I was really excited about something. And again, that's not who I've been for the last, I don't know how long, like, and the cool part is I stopped right then and was like, this is awesome. I haven't felt this because it's the high end and the medicines have pretty much kept me in the meh range, so this is one of those rare times where I've been able to kind of break through and feel, those high highs that you don't get as much once you're on these medicines. Cause, unfortunately you have to give those up to get rid of the low lows also, which is generally worth it, but it's nice like this, like I said, I recognized it was like this is great, like this is really cool that, I'm I'm feeling this way. Like I'm feeling feelings, you know, like I'm not just droning through. This is pretty awesome. So obviously that's my win for the week is, you know, not just having those feelings, but recognizing them and stopping for a minute and appreciating that I was having those, because I may not have them again for a while because it's not a constant with me, but it does show that the work is paying off, trying to get these medicines right, that I'm probably close-ish, you know, like this little stuff like that, you know, it's nice when you're doing something a lot, like work on yourself or whatever, and you kind of get a justification. Like, okay, I'm moving the right way, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And that's really exciting that you felt excitement.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's a rarity for you. So that's really awesome that you were able to have that moment.
Yeah. And that was my thing, was like I said, it was so like, I just stopped right then and was like, and, you know, again, Heno saw me do it when we were in Chicago, when I was like in that Van Gogh exhibit, you know, and I was like, dude, everything that was a worst case scenario happened to me, and I'm cool. Like, I'm good. You know, like those moments are like mind blowing now. You know, 15 years ago or whatever, I would have been like, yeah, whatever. This is, you know, but now it's, you know, a lot different. So yeah, that's pretty much been my week. There's probably some other stuff I can't remember, but that's enough.
Nice. How about you, Heno? How you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've been playing a lot of music. That's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was excited when I saw that you were going to be working on some music before you podcasted tonight.
Yeah, and that was like, we got together and played, what was it, Saturday afternoon? No, it was Friday. We got together and played on Friday afternoon, and I think we played Wednesday night, Friday afternoon, and then I just asked Dave, I said, hey, you want to work on some stuff when I get off work on Sunday just for an hour or so? And because we have a gig in like 6 weeks or so, and I'm like, we need to think that we have a gig in 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's a good plan. Yeah.
Get a little motivated.
Yeah, we need to find any place we can. So it was really great. I had to go into work last night, but then when I got home, I was you know, when I most of the songs that we do we're not going to do them exactly like we normally would, so I actually have to write out my own music for it.
Oh, okay.
Because not everything is it's easier to find stuff for guitar on the internet than it is to find stuff for bass, let's just say.
Oh, I bet.
And even when you do find it, it's never accurate. Yeah, I always use my ears. And the few things that we're working on, I am 100% using my ears. And so I'm sitting down, and it's been really fun for me to have that challenge of sit down, you know, apply some brain power. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've just been stoked to be creative in that regard, and so tonight was awesome too. It's just so wonderful to have like my passion back in such a positive way.
Huh? Looks like you and I had the same kind of thing there. You know, I found myself having some passion again too.
Yeah. And then the other thing was I was, you know, my big concern was the tinnitus in my ear, and so I spent some money on some gear so I could do headphones, and so we've been setting that up, and it's everything's working out great. I still have the same amount of ringing in my ears, but it's not getting any worse, and I'm not walking out feeling like oh boy, you know, not that again, you know. Yeah, so it's keeping me into it, and it's been really fun. That's been kind of like my thing I've been stoked on, and then everything's going well, works good, and we had our dryer broke down at the house, and we just picked up a new used one, and just, you know, it's kind of like moving through life.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I ran into a friend of mine down the street. I was like, so, what's new and exciting? And he's like, not a whole lot. And that's okay.
That's true. Yeah.
Pretty much like my answer is like, how are things? Well, it doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Got on my motorcycle and I rode to the gym on Saturday, and it was nice to be out in the sun, and all that kind of stuff. Springtime's coming. Had to mow the lawn.
Yeah. We're finally here getting, what is it? I think tomorrow it's supposed to be near 80 or something finally.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get those, at night we're starting to hit more 40, 50 for the low, and the days we're getting to 60s and stuff. So hopefully we're past all the garbage.
Yeah.
Well, I can actually start planting because it's been so cold here that I've been afraid to put anything in the ground because, frost and all that good jazz. So I'm hoping that maybe next day I can get off, which gosh knows when that's going to be. But
September. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's nice to I was going to say, sometimes it's nice to have routine, and feel like I want to do it. And that's where I've been. And even cooking for myself and eat, I'm never going to eat well. I love chocolate too much. Right. The way it's going to be.
Yeah.
I wake up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom and I'm going to swing by the refrigerator.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the closest bathroom to my room is nowhere near the kitchen. So otherwise I would do the exact same thing.
Well, I figure I'm like one of my dogs. I did some, where's my treat?
Exactly.
Jen, that reminds me of how you used to, you wouldn't take cough medicine without a cookie.
I still won't.
As an adult.
Oh, yes. A shot of cough syrup, I need 2 cookie chaser.
Right.
Mandatory.
I concur.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great idea, but it's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's about me. I got not a whole lot. How about you, Jen?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like it when we all are on the same page. Maybe it doesn't make the best podcast because, people like hearing goods and bads and all that good jazz, but I'm doing good too. So we got a threesome.
Sweet.
All 3 happiness. I like that.
Good.
Or positivity, I think is probably more the key. We'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. As far as my week, I'm doing good. I'm a little disappointed because I'm not seeing the results that I was hoping to. My doctor put me on naproxen or I don't know. Anyways, there's a new drug on the market. I shouldn't say there's a new drug being advertised that's a mixture of Wellbutrin and another drug that's for weight loss.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's a appetite suppressant. And so since I've already on Wellbutrin, instead of putting me on this new name brand drug and spending the money, he's like, I'll just assign the other active ingredient in it, and there we go. I'm like, yeah, that works for me.
Right, and so, your insurance would probably cover it this way. If you do the other, since it's new, it may not cover it.
Yeah.
Even though it's the exact same stuff, yeah.
Exactly. He's like, we won't have to worry about anything, messing around with that. So I'm like, okay. So he put me on that, and I was hoping between that and the new job that I'd be seeing some results, which I'm not. But I'm also not changing a lot of my behaviors, so I need to do that. And I recognize my role in the whole thing. I can't rely on medicine to fix my problems. Right. I have to aggressively change my actions to fix my problems.
I ate 3 pieces of kale. How come I'm not skinny? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I do have ownership in the whole thing. But, so that's kind of one of the things I'm working on. I'm also working on, being a little bit more assertive. I like to be a positive person, and I like to be happy, and I like to say please and thank you. It's just who I am as a person. And I don't like confrontation, and I don't like being mean, and I don't like, I hate to say reprimanding, but correcting, maybe, I guess is the better word. Correcting people. It doesn't come naturally to me, is something I feel comfortable with. But one of the guys I work with is being more aggressive than he should be. As far as like when he gets crazy busy and stuff, he'll throw a piece of paper at my desk versus handing it to me.
Okay.
And he'll, if he's calling out a number to me, he'll call off the last 4 digits, not the full number, and he'll turn his head as he's walking away so I can't hear him. So stuff like that. So, and I understand that this is part of it is growing pains because he had a good relationship with the last guy in my position, and they understood each other's language better than I can, and they had a unique form of communication. I don't have that yet. I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm still on the learning curve, and I'm not nearly as fast. I'm still on the learning curve. So it's, so that's something else I have on my working agenda is becoming a little bit more assertive and, saying, no, this is how you're going to treat me.
Yeah. This
is how you're going to act towards me. And this is what we're going to be doing. So, so that's kind of a couple things that I'm working on.
Hold on. Let me interrupt you really fast. I want to compliment you on the fact that, like, the recognizing that you need to be more aggressive to stand up for yourself in this one. Cause this is one of those times that you really should stand up for yourself because he's doing whatever and it's affecting your work, Yeah. It's not like he's just funning with you or something and you're like, whatever, I'm just going to ignore this guy. It's, like you said, you have to wait, I need the rest of that number or, throwing paper at you is really unprofessional, but whatever, So anyway.
And it's not really like, he's throwing it in my face or anything. He's like just kind of tossing it on the desk versus handing it to me.
It's still unprofessional though, It's like,
it is.
If you ever see somebody going into like a gas station or something like that, and they're paying cash and they won't hand the cash to the clerk, they put it on the counter, and it's like, really?
Exactly.
It's like, come on, yeah.
And it is a subordinate. It's not a colleague.
Oh, okay.
So which makes a bigger difference.
It does. Yep.
Yeah. So it's someone that he doesn't report directly to me, but he reports directly to a counterpart of mine. So, yeah. So, just something I need to make sure that I'm really focused on because as much as I don't like doing it, it is important that I embrace that side of things as well. So, but as far as my win for the week, it's tough to kind of think back and pick out one specific thing, but I'm gonna say that the thing I'm most proud of about myself right now is how I'm managing and embracing this new role. That from the beginning with it, I really haven't been having anxiety or really stressing about things or worrying about my coworkers and what they're thinking. I've really been focused on me going in and me doing the best job I can do and leaving all the other the stuff just all by the wayside and just really focusing on being me and doing me and being the best I can be at what I'm doing. And, that's not something that I've been able to say very often. Because more often than not, the other stuff stands in my way and gets in my head. But for some reason with this job, I've just been able to walk into it and just say, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And this is where I'm going to be.
You know what I wonder if it could be to some extent is because you're not walking in as like just some customer service rep or something that you're more your qualifications put you higher than what you've taken the job. Like you're kind of more at where you feel you should be. So maybe you have some more confidence behind it because it's like, this is what I want, versus this is a job,
And the hours are tough, but it's a different type of tough. I'm still working like 60 hours a week, but I'm getting up more and I'm moving around and I've got a variety of different things to focus on. And so it's different. I don't feel the hours as much as I felt the hours at other jobs and like my last job.
Good. Yeah.
So, which is good, but I still have to recognize the fact that I need reasonable time off. I had today off. Today's my first day off in over a week. And this was a quote unquote gift, basically. They didn't say that, but that's how it's being treated. Is me getting a day off is a bonus.
And really quick, this is a big deal for a lot of people because a lot of people don't value their time, Yeah. And this isn't a gift from them because you're giving them something. They're not giving you anything, Yeah. Like, it's not like they're like, oh, you only had 10 hours this week. Here's a chance to make better money. And it's like, yeah, you get overtime probably or whatever, right?
Yes.
But it's still the idea. It's like, yeah, you're giving up a free day. That work for them is there regardless whether you come in or not. That's still there. So they're not really doing anything special, Whereas you're giving up that time. And yeah, you're compensated for it, but it's still, like you were just saying, kind of, it's like sometimes having that day off is worth way more than whatever they're paying you, but to refresh yourself. And especially when you've got like 6 days in front of you of work or 7 days or what,
Because most likely I will.
Yeah.
Most likely because they already have me coming in Monday. My normally scheduled days off, what I was hired for was Thursday through Saturday nights. Mm-hmm. What I've been working is all the nights. And, other than my vacation that I took. Mm-hmm. So it's tough because normally traditionally I'm supposed to have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. Well, they're letting me have Sunday off and they want me to work Monday and potentially work Tuesday. And then I'm doing my normal schedule of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Mm-hmm. And if they're running on Sunday, they're going to want me there Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that I'm just like, I can't do 7 days in a row. Yeah. 6 is my max. I really don't want to do more than 6 days in a row. One day a week off is reasonably.
Yeah, I don't think that's asking too much. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not unreasonable for me to be expecting a day off once a week. So, but we'll see. We'll see how this works and how long I can manage through this.
Yeah.
Because if I can, I can't. I just have to find something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other thing, too, is it's like, you were hired in for one thing, and I know things can change, blah, blah, all that stuff, but it's like, you're doing what you agreed to when you walked in the door. They were like, hey, here's the job. You said, cool, I'll accept that in the pay terms. And yeah, you knew there might be overtime or whatever and stuff, but it's like I said, it's at some point, it's like, I'm not getting any days off now. Like I'm giving you all of this time, even though again, you're getting paid, but it's still the idea that's like, I have no time to recharge, and also, stuff like that affects your work ethic, if you're exhausted, how hard are you going to work? What's the likelihood of making a mistake? All that garbage goes up, and so, yeah.
And I will play, because I was very clear. I made sure that I put on my application and everything that I have a disability. Mm-hmm. I'm covered under the American Disability Act because of my bipolar. And if I need to, I will tell them. I'm like, because it is incredibly important that I keep a good work-life balance.
Yes.
For my mental health.
Right.
And if they're standing in the way of me doing that, then I'll call them out on it.
Right. Well, and like I said, it benefits them in the long run too, because you will do, theoretically you'll do better work. You won't be, you'll be faster. You'll probably be more accurate, all those things. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but you definitely are working at it's like driving when you're tired. Yeah, you might be able to get where you're going perfectly fine, but your odds of an accident go up drastically because you're not sharp,
Yeah.
And it's kind of this way too. And we've gotten to a point that people have been threatened so many times with, well, if this we'll get rid of it or whatever, or there's the threats of layoffs or all this, to where people have given or conceded this part of themselves to the job. And again, even if you get paid, you're still conceding something here, cause again, they're going to keep rolling whether or not you come in or not. That job's going to be there. That work's going to be there, all that, but if you run yourself completely into the ground, they'll just find another horse, So at some point you have to value yourself, and you are. I'm not saying you. I'm saying you as in the general you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, no.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, definitely, folks. Make sure that you value your time as much as you value the paycheck. Because there's a balance. You need to have a balance between the two, for sure. Well,
plus scientifically, there's a threshold that you'll hit to where at some point the money won't matter. Like the money's not enough of a encouragement or a what do you call it? Okay, incentive, motivator, whatever. And once you hit that, you're not going to care as much because you're like, yeah, I'm getting a nice paycheck, but I have no time to do anything. I'm tired all the time. It's like at some point you'd be like, I would gladly take a little less money to not be exhausted 7 days a week. So yeah. Yep. And if you don't establish that early, it'll be harder to establish later.
Correct, because they'll see that you've done it.
Right. They'll be like, well, you've been doing it for the last 5 years. Why all of a sudden is it a problem? Yeah. So.
Well, that kind of brings us to our topic of the night, which is happiness is not a choice, positivity is. So one thing that we've talked about a few times on here is positivity. And positivity is a choice has been a motto that I've adopted for my life and for myself over the last few weeks or so. And I was doing a little bit more research on this, and that's when I came across this article about happy is not a choice. And that really resonated with me because another thing that I have kind of taken to heart is that emotions are nouns. They exist. They don't do anything. They just are. They just exist. Happy exists. You can't force it one way or another. It just is. You are happy or you're not happy.
Yeah.
Or you're happy-ish, as we've talked about.
Yes.
Can be happy-ish. But this article is happy is not a choice. The difference between happiness and positivity. You've probably heard quotes like happiness is a choice, or if you want to be happy, be. Or people are as happy as they make their minds up to be. I'm probably guilty of using these words. Scroll through my Instagram feed and I bet you'll find choose happy or something along those lines amidst my many quote-themed photos. In theory, these quotes come from a good place. They're meant to highlight the notion that though you don't always have to control your circumstances, you have control over how you feel. Except that's not true. Quotes like choose happiness or think happy thoughts aim to convey the idea that no matter what happens, you have control over what you think. But what they actually convey is that you have control over what you feel. There's a big difference between what you think and how you feel. And the idea that thoughts and feelings are interchangeable is potentially very damaging because much as you might want it to, you can't control, much as you want to, you cannot control how you feel. And you can't control happiness because happiness is a feeling. Mm-hmm. You can't just choose to be happy when your dog just died or your wife just left you and you're suffering from depression. You can't choose to be happy when you just found out your child has cancer or your parents are abusive or your doctor just diagnosed you with a chronic illness. So that's a happy thought. So yeah. I figure I'll stop there for a moment and kind of check in with you guys. So what do you think? No, I mean, do you agree with her that the happy versus positivity, that you can't control happy?
I do.
Hold on.
What?
Hold on. Brian and I need to do a little more good, bad, and the ugly stare off.
This works well on an audio thing.
Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Okay.
I've always believed this way also, and it's because, like, I've chased being happy for years. You know, it's like, well, if, you know, I have to get to, you know, this will make me happy. You know, it's like one of those things like, well, if I get this, I'll be happy. And then you get that and you're like, well, that's not enough. I need to get, you know, and you're just chasing happiness, but at no point in that process do you really stop and appreciate what you've done or got, you know, the work you've put in or what you've achieved or just what you've been lucky enough to have, you know, drop in your lap, however it works out. But thinking positively is something that I've been working on for the last few years. And by doing that, you know, I've found myself recognizing when I'm happy. I'm recognizing when good things are happening. You know, when I was chasing happiness and trying to be happy, I never had those feelings. You know, so to me, that's kind of the core of why like, as soon as you sent this, when I read the headline, I was like, yes. Because you can't just wake up and go, I'm happy. And it's true. Otherwise, like I told Jen before we recorded, depression would not exist anymore. Cause who's going to choose to be miserable? You know, I mean, there may be a few people, but overall it would go by the wayside, and it isn't. And my therapist has never said the words to me, just be happy. But she has said, try to think of things positively, reframe in a positive manner, even if it's the same result. She's like, in the long run, she's like, what'll happen is when something happens, you won't immediately go worst case scenario or something bad's gonna happen, you know? Because most times it doesn't. So, yeah.
For me, I've always generally had a positive attitude my whole life, except I thought happiness came from, really, I thought happiness came from other people, really, when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. I thought the situations of my life is what brought happiness. It was people, places, and things. So I was relegating my happiness, or what I considered happiness, to things I had no control over. Mm-hmm. And when those things didn't deliver what I demanded of them, introduce alcohol for dealing with it. Yeah. And so for me, the part of my alcoholism was that constant search for some sort of satisfaction in life, mm-hmm. from outside sources, basically, because I had esteem, yet I was self-centered to the max. It's just not being in balance. And so it was great. I just talked about this with my men's group on Thursday night. And one of the things that the reading that was brought up, and it was basically like, happiness or unhappiness is not the point. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to figure out, how do you get through problems in life? Get through that. Yeah. How can we share how we get through these things? How do we get through the tough times? And then if something comes along that makes you really happy, say thank you and have a cookie or two. Yeah. And that kind of that idea is that there's just too much like, happiness, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And without, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it's like, for me, that's how I was. There's a lot of future casting involved with that. There was a lot of living in a fantasy world, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And today, that I'm happy with myself. So I don't tend to need that from others, which allows me to handle situations that happen and problems in life a lot easily. I'm not disappointed as often and that kind of stuff. And so that to me is the important part of it. So I would say overall, I am positive.
Mm-hmm. Well, also by not putting as much weight into things as you were before, to me anyway, by not putting my happiness in getting things or having things as much, I've realized that what I've actually done is removed a lot of disappointment. Because you can't, well, you can't always get what you want, I mean, it's, I mean, like right now, I don't have an income. There's things I want all the time. And I've gotten to the point now that I'm okay with that. At some point, if I have money and I want to acquire things, that's fine too. But at this point, I'm recognizing those things when I had those, got whatever I wanted basically, I was more miserable than I am now with less stuff, Mm-hmm. So it's like once you kind of cross that threshold, I think your kind of mindset is kind of flipped to the right way, because like you said, Heno, you can't control a lot of the other stuff, but you can control, like if something happens to you, you can't control what the other person does, but you can control you. If something's making you miserable, you can say, I'm going to remove myself from this. Or I'm going to look at it this way instead. And, and like I said, I thought it was all garbage at one point too. And, Heno knows for a fact because the podcast he used to be on, Angela's Awesome Podcast, they would talk very stuff and positivity. And I'm like, and I was vocal about it to where I'm like, this stuff, and here we are, a couple years later and I'm, pounding my fist on the table as much as anybody about it.
That's what I still have the quote too, because it's Tony's like, I got this new podcast I'm listening to, if you're into positive thinking, and Brian's like, nope.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Yeah. Nope, not so much. We were going to use it as a promo, and then we were going to do the afterwards when on the Crazy Life, Brian talks about Angela's Awesome Podcast.
Right.
And how right they were.
Yep. Well, it is.
You make I think you really make the point that this idea of you can't bolster the idea that you can't think yourself into happiness. I cannot think myself into different emotions. When things happen in life, I'm going to react a certain way. There's things that are going to make me happy no matter how much I want to not be happy. And there's things that are going to make me sad no matter how much I don't want to be sad. However, I can think myself into the proper reaction to a situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that to me is and that is an attempt to be positive.
Yeah.
And then my experience is that I tend to be more happy as a result of having that base of positivity, which is a matter of reasoning. When we talk about like, what can I control? What can I control? When you look at codependency issues, when you look at these things, you are using a higher function. You are getting out of emotional reaction and you are getting into reasoning. Mm-hmm. And it takes that. I mean, you have to have that because when I'm in emotion, I'm not thinking about whether somebody else is entitled to their own feelings. I don't care.
Yep.
It's just, your feelings are your feelings. You can't not have them.
Right.
If you're sad, it doesn't matter if there's anything that caused you to be sad or not. If you're sad, you're sad.
Yep.
If you're happy, you're happy. If you're angry, you're angry. Most of the time, there's factors that are involved in those emotions, but for the most part, it just is.
And I also think that, to throw in the distorted thinking worksheet for the week, that a lot of times with the chase for happiness, you really start putting yourself into the all or nothing camp. And I'm totally speaking from experience on this. Jen knows it for sure. Yeah. That I, for a long time, was basically like, if I'm not getting big wins, life's terrible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was ignoring, and again, it's part of the reason why on this show we started doing the wins for the week and the little stuff, was because I had such a hard time with that. And you know, that's what ended up happening is, you know, I'm looking for whatever this goal is that I'm like shooting for the moon or whatever. And if I don't hit that goal, every step along the way is just, it's just a waste of time, basically. Like, This is garbage, you know, and that's, all that does is make you miserable because you start going failure, you know, instead of going, hey, I learned this from this, and, you know, like recognizing what you gained from the steps or whatever. And whereas now, even when I don't hit a mark, I'm still looking at things, basically going, what can I take from this and move forward with, you know? Which is how inventors and scientists and all this kind of stuff, that's how they work, you know? They hit a wall, they go, okay, this is good, we'll take this part of it and we'll try it this way. And eventually, you know, sometimes they hit.
And this is actually a perfect segue into the next part, which is fleeting emotion versus logical choice. You might be saying to yourself right about now, aren't positivity and happiness basically the same thing? Aren't positive thoughts and happy thoughts the same? No, they're not the same. And the difference between them is very, very, very important, especially for anyone striving to live a positively present life. I love that, positively present. Fleeting emotion versus logical choice. As I said before, happiness is an emotion. Emotions, as a rule, are fleeting. Some last longer than others, but they're very rarely entire days when you're happy or sad or depressed. Even when things are going very incredibly well and you're having an amazing day, you're not actually experiencing true happiness and joy the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
See. On the other hand, positive thinking is an active choice. The decision to focus on the possibility of good results or seek out the goodness in any situation, person, good or bad. Positive thinking is logical, not emotional. It's more about using your head than it is about using your heart. It's about taking whatever you experience and feel and try your best to make the most of the situation, even if the situation is terrible. So, kind of like what you were just talking about, Brian. Logic. It's you got to use the logic behind it to understand the positivity and the positive outcomes of the situations. Mm-hmm. So it's much more cerebral. It's much more in your head. And feelings are strictly emotions that our bodies go through. Doesn't really involve the head at all. Involves the heart, involves the, emotions just happen. They just are. Mm-hmm. But the more we can get into our heads, the more we can really focus on striving for that positivity. So experiencing versus learning. Happiness must be experienced. Positivity, on the other hand, is something that can be learned and practiced by everyone. No matter what's going on in your life, you can strive for a positive attitude. You can also practice it and get better at it, which is something you can't do with happiness. Mm-hmm. You can fake happiness, but that's not the same as practicing it. You're either happy or you're not. You can't learn to be happier, and you certainly can't force yourself to feel truly happy when you just don't feel that way. A lot of people struggle because of the notion that you somehow can become happier overall by doing something external, getting a better job, falling in love, buying the newest gadget. But those kinds of things only provide a burst of happiness that will eventually fade until we find that next happiness high. Happiness can be gained from external things, but it won't last because it's merely an emotion. Instead of focusing on experiences, it's much more useful to spend time and energy learning how to find the good in any situation, rather than striving for short bursts of happiness. And that kind of ties into both what you and Hannah, what you and Brian both were saying about tying happiness to things and to experiences versus, the positive, the sustainability of positive thinking.
Yeah. Because, if I hand somebody $100, they're going to be super happy right then.
Sure.
3 weeks from then, I'm going to be like, are you still really happy about that $100? They're probably going to be like, oh, I already spent it. Kind of a thing. And poof, it's gone. So whatever happiness you had tied to that money, it's gone, basically. Or if you find a $20 bill, you're happy. You're like, sweet, $20, whatever. If you find a $5, are you just as happy? Or are you just like, oh, it's only $5 and you leave it? And it's like, you need to appreciate, even if it's 50 cents you find or $1 or, kind of appreciate all of it because all of those things are positive. You know, like, yeah, $20 is better than $5. We all agree on that because that's math, but you can still really appreciate $5. There's been times where, you know, that $5 has bought me, you know, a meal, or I've put that in someone's gas tank, or, you know what I mean? So, if you just ignore those kind of things, then, you know, you won't realize how sometimes, you know, as much as people complain about, well, life's really out to get me and dumps on me and blah, blah, but the opposite, and this is what we're talking about, the opposite of that can also be true. There's a lot of times that, however you want to look at it, God, the universe, flying spaghetti monster, whatever it is, smiles on us. There's times where stuff just happens, and it's little stuff, but it's cool. You know, it's something that you're just like, oh yeah, you know, or whatever. And again, I wasn't seeing those things. You know, I was very much you know, it was black or white. That was it. And
I tried to point them out.
Yeah, you did. And I kind of disagree when it points in there that you're either happy or you're not. I don't agree with that because of us talking about happy-ish. I think you can be happy-ish. Technically, I guess you're not happy semantically, or what, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, I think you're still past the halfway point. You know, maybe I wouldn't round up to happy, but I can't round down to miserable. You know, type of a thing.
I mean, you can't force happy-ish either. I mean, it's...
I'm just saying that you can't...
The basic premise is correct. It's just, you're right. I agree with you that...
But because to me, otherwise... Yeah, because otherwise you're shooting for an all-or-nothing scenario. Like, oh, I'm not happy, I'm miserable. That's not... There's plenty of times when you're not, like, happy, but you're also, you know, like we talked when we asked about how the week was. You know, and Heno, I think, was it you that made that comment or whatever, that was like, oh yeah, your neighbor or whatever, you know, that said it's not bad, or it's, you know, it's whatever, but that's not bad, you know? And those are the kind of times I'm meaning, is that there's a big gray area between happy and miserable, and we mostly live there, you know?
It's all about feelings. I mean, we can name them different things, like the meh, you know, it's technically not a feeling, but I think we can classify it as one. You know, the meh feeling, the happy-ish feeling. Yeah. So I think they all exist in some variation thereof, but they're all the same. They can't.
No, I'm not arguing that they can't, that you can't force them. Yeah. I'm just saying that if you look at things as though you're happy or you're not, you will set yourself up for failure. Yeah. That's not a positive way of looking at things.
No, exactly. Now, big picture versus present moment. Whatever you experience, good and bad, can impact happiness levels. It's hard to be happy if aspects of your life, some of which might be out of your control, aren't going well. For example, let's say you're having a really great day at work and you receive an unexpected promotion. This should make you really happy, right? It might, but it might not make you happy for very long if something really unhappy is happening in another area of your life. You can't experience true happiness when certain areas of your life are negative, uncertain, or unhappy. Happiness focuses on the big picture. This isn't a bad thing, but it's important to difference from positivity, which isn't at all concerned with or impacted by the big picture. Positive thinking focuses on the current moment and determining what you can gain from that experience or that interaction, but making the most of whatever is happening to you right now. It should not be tainted by what has already happened or what could happen, unless you're recalling a time in which you struggled with a difficult situation and overcame it, reminding yourself that you're strong enough to survive whatever you're currently going through. Positivity is about taking whatever is happening and trying to make it as good as it possibly be, regardless of what's going on in other areas of life or what might happen in the future. There are some major differences between happiness and positivity, but making the differentiation between happiness and positivity isn't meant to make positive seem better than happy, or to put down happiness in any way. It's only meant to show that there's a big difference. And here's why that matters. So take a pause for a second. So I find that very interesting because when you know, not only is positivity something that you can magic, it's also something that is present, which kind of you've talked a lot about being present.
Yeah, and I like that that they bring up that idea that one is long term and one is short term.
Mhm.
Because that's really, like, I used to always feel like my life was just like I was a ball in a pinball machine just bouncing around.
Yep.
And because it was. Overall satisfaction in life, like if I were to take every single week and give it a rating, it was going up and down based on my emotional moods. And there was no, it's like weather versus climate. Climate's going to be slow and steady with some minor adjustments. Weather's going to be all over the place.
Yes.
That's how it is. And these are little, little comparisons. To me, that's one of the other, just like weather does too, or climate does. We have an overall, I have my internal climate. And so I am likely to be one way or the other based on the general trend of my climate. And out of that comes down to, yes, I can't control my emotions, but I can set myself up for better emotions.
Yes.
And I can set myself up for more positive experiences. To me, being positive doesn't necessarily mean experiences. I act accordingly,
Yeah.
I have to respond appropriately. So when I'm overly negative, overly cynical, which is what happens when we get into these, when we make the choices to not be positive, we have a tendency into confirmation bias. In either way. I prefer today to have confirmation bias in a more positive way. I used to have it in more of a cynical way, and it was a negative way.
Yep.
And so I tended to overall affect my life that way. And I was practicing it. And I wondered why my outcomes weren't always so great, especially when it came down to relationships. Here I am thinking, all of a sudden I get in this new relationship. I have all this happiness, but deep down inside, I've been practicing cynicism and negative attitudes for a while. And the person all of a sudden that meets me gets to know me a little better and realizes, the truth. And it doesn't work out.
Right.
And I wonder what's wrong with me. And yet I never took a look at what the root cause was. And that was that I had a general downward trend.
Yeah. Well, and you're totally right with the confirmation bias too, because like if you went into relationships saying, yeah, relationships never work for me, but whatever kind of a thing, and you go in with like that kind of cynical attitude, you're going to be looking for reasons why it doesn't work. Like you said, confirmation bias, you're trying to, confirm what you think going in. And if you keep practicing negative thinking, this is how you live your life and you don't realize you're doing it, because that's what I did. And once this is where the distorting thinking worksheet, slapped me in the face, because that's what really woke me up to the fact that I was really doing this. That I didn't realize that I was going into every scenario basically looking for how I was going to fail instead of looking for places I could succeed. And and after switching that, it's made a huge difference in, I still have depression. I still have to fight it. I'm not miserable every day. Before I was miserable pretty close to every day. That's a big difference. The other thing was, and I like the fact that it pointed out the long-term, short-term thing, because that really is very similar to, how they say depression's living in the past, anxiety's living in the future. And this basically is very similar to that, in that if you're right here now, you can be positive, which can lead to you being happy. If you're living 5 days down the road or 10 days down the road, you can appreciate what is going on right now. So you're gonna miss a lot of those little cool things I talked about, it's like walking with your head down. You won't realize maybe it's a gorgeous day outside. That kind of concept, and I think that's really important for people to kind of keep in your head, because it's really hard once you go down that road. It's really, really hard to rewire your thinking.
Yep.
And that's literally what you have to do. Is you have to strip your brain kinda and rewire it, and then work on it from there, which is where I'm at. You know, I mean, what
Get
about?
rid of that knob and tube up there, people.
Yeah, it's like I'm about in year 3-ish, I think, of this kind of stuff, and I think that's basically what it's been. The first part of it was stripping the negativity. The second part was solidifying a base, and now it's time to build. You know, and that's kind of where I'm going forward. So, like I said, if you know you're doing it, try to stop as quick as you can.
It's slippery slope.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
You know, I can agree with you so much. And then, and also you know, like the whole pinball feeling. Growing up, I was such a pinball of emotions. You know, and because I was living off of emotion, I wasn't living off of, you know, logic and thoughtful, you know, going into things thoughtfully. I was just okay, I'm happy right now. No, I'm sad now. And now, you know, and I just let all these emotions control me, which is part of the bipolar. But it's also part of, you know, of learning how to manage my life. You know, and now that I have understood and I get the positivity as a choice and how I look at things, I choose how I look at things and how that choice manifestates itself. That's the right word. I don't know. I kind of.
It's a word now.
Yeah.
It is a word. We're going with it.
Yeah, if this was salty language, that would have just named the show.
That would have been, yeah.
Yeah, manifestates.
Manifest. That's what I was going for.
Yeah, exactly.
Manifestations.
Exactly. Manifests in emotions.
Yeah.
You know, those positive things kind of just morph into the emotions, morph back into positivity. It's kind of a cool thing. But
it's interesting, like when you use terms like, you know, logic and, you know, I've said, you know, reasoning and blah, blah, blah. It can make it sound like, oh, well, my life has to be so, you know, dispassionate. It's like, no, that's not true. It actually should become more passionate.
Yes.
Yeah.
It actually should become more exciting because, you've learned some tools to handle situations that used to, be difficult for you. You've probably learned to share this with other people. So your entire environment has become more positive, because I know that was the effect of me on my workplace, is that the better I handle a situation, I am also affecting and I'll use the karma of other people around me, meaning this 5 minutes, I'd make 5 minutes worse. That's to me what karma is. My attitude can affect somebody's future. That is a fact.
Yep.
Depending on how my attitude is, I can completely change somebody's day, and they might not even be paying attention to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it can happen.
Yep.
And so I look at it as I'm doing a public service by being more positive.
And it is. You are 100% right.
Yeah, it really is. Shoot, there was something else I was going to point out, but I can't remember what it is now, so move on.
Well,
actually, hold on.
Why does the difference matter?
Hold on, really quick. I know what it was. I was going to point out that all those years when I thought I was being logical and being a realist and whatnot, I was not being logical. I was being completely illogical. For years and years, I thought I was making the smart choice, the informed choice, blah, blah, until my therapist was basically like, nope, and here's why. And again, distorted thinking worksheet. That's, from that session, when she put that in my hand and started going like, this is what you're doing here, here, and here. And I was like, whoa, because all of a sudden, all those years where I was like, I'm a realist, and, it's like, no, what you are is ignoring good things happening in your life. You're just looking for bad.
Yep. Confirmation bias.
Yep.
So why does the difference matter? After reading about the differences between happiness and positivity, you might be thinking, so what? Why does this matter? It matters because so many people use these very different terms as if they're interchangeable, and this can lead to damaging beliefs in those who read or hear phrases like, if you want to be happy, or choose to be happy. Because happiness is not a choice. when people are told to be happy and they're unable to achieve a happy state, they feel like failures.
Mm-hmm.
If happiness is promoted as something that can just be chosen, like pulling an item off a store shelf, those who cannot seem to choose it feels though there is something wrong with them. On the other hand, if you were to suggest to someone who is struggling that he, she think positively, accompanied by suggestions for how to actually do it, those words might actually be useful and encouraging. Happiness is not an action that can simply be chosen, and suggesting it can actually cause feelings of frustration, confusion, and even self-loathing.
Yep. Because people with depression will feel like you're either not listening or you don't understand. You know?
Yep.
Sorry, Hanno.
And also just that idea of like if you go talk to somebody you know and they talk about how they're so happy and why are you so happy, and it's like I'm in a new relationship or blah blah blah. Okay, that you can't help that other person. You can't, if that person says, well, I'm not doing so well. Oh, well, why don't you go get yourself a nice relationship too, like me, and you'll be happy today also.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. And just that idea of we can help each other out when we have actually steps that we've taken in our lives to become more positive. Mm-hmm. That can actually be shared with others.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. It's way better than just saying I'm happy because of some external thing that not everyone else can have.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't even want it.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to mention that puts you in this scenario to where you're like, oh, as long as I'm in a relationship, I'm happy.
Well, that's, yeah.
And it's like, somebody might stay in a bad relationship because they'll feel that if they're not in a relationship, they'll be miserable, kind of a thing. Or the people who go right out of one right into another because they can't be alone, because they won't be alone. Let me rephrase. They won't be alone, kind of a thing. And it's like, no, you really need to stop putting your happiness, like you said very early on, Hanno, in other people, places, things, all that stuff. It's, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be in a relationship. There's nothing wrong with enjoying someone else's company, but you will survive without someone else. And if you put your happiness or, whatever in that basket, first of all, that's giving somebody way, way too much power.
Yep.
Second, and in control, because you're just handing it right away,
Yep.
But also, it's just, in the long run, you're not going to stay happy, because eventually the relationship won't be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need something else. And, so it's just, if you can just be, positive and work through things, like I said, it sounds like garbage, but for the most part, look at the people that that really, and I don't mean like the ones that are like crazy over the top positivity, like giving motivational speeches and stuff.
New word.
Yep. I mean it more like, just the people that just, don't let things, become negative immediately. They try to have a positive outlook. If you look, a lot of times, they seem less stressful. They seem like more kind of comes to them, and the reason for that is because they recognize it. And they point it out, whereas when you're the other way and you're constantly you're just ignoring anything good happening to you because it's not the bad thing because you're so smart, is gonna happen. So, yeah, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's made a huge difference to me, shifting that little shift, which has turned out to be the biggest shift since me getting any sort of help. That really turned me around. So, yeah.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, and speaking of self-loathing, speaking of the paragraph ahead, not of Brian, but speaking of self-loathing, one of the other reasons of using happiness and positive thinking are used interchangeably is it causes a lot of people to strive for something that is unattainable, a lasting, permanent state of happiness. Due to many popular cultural messages about happiness, many of us believe we should strive for happiness most of the time, even when we're sad or struggling, even when we're stressed or heartbroken. As Dan Harris writes in 10% Happier, the pursuit of happiness becomes the source of our unhappiness. happiness.
Mm-hmm.
If you're striving for a constant state of happiness, a fleeting emotion that rarely lasts for an extended period of time, that sometimes comes from a negative source, like abused substances, the approval for negative people, unhealthy activities, etc., you're bound to be, at the very least, disappointed a good deal of the time. You might feel guilty when you don't feel happy when everything is going well, or confused when you experience happiness during difficult times. Making an emotion, happiness, a lifelong goal is a pretty great way to set yourself up for a lot of disappointment and stress. While there will be, hopefully, many, many moments of happiness in your life, no one is happy every single moment of every single day, and striving for that is like spending your life hoping to find an actual pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. This isn't meant to leave you feeling as if happiness is some crazy dream that'll never be made real. It's only meant to show how the pursuit of happiness isn't what leads to true fulfillment. Happiness comes in amazing, fleeting moments that we're all lucky to experience from time to time. And the best way to keep an eye out for these moments and make the most of them while they happen is to focus on positive thinking and on seeking out the good in your life, no matter where you find yourself. Rather than focusing on choosing happiness, what we should be focusing on is thinking positively. Remember, we can't choose how we feel, but we can choose how we think about those feelings and whatever it was that caused us to feel that way. Instead of focusing so much on being happy, what we should be focusing on is how we can make the most of our lives, both the happy and the sad part.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. At the mentioning the fact of like, you know, you're not life's going to happen. You're gonna have good days, you're going to have bad days, or you're miserable. You know, you're not going to suddenly make yourself happy, but you have an overall positive. You're going to have more hope. You're going to see the end of the tunnel. You're not going to get stuck in places for long. We're all going to have reactions to things like losing loved ones, losing pets, losing our job, having, you know, strains at work. It could be just as simple as like a contract because you rent a place and the leaseholder is being a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But if you have a positive attitude, you're more likely to see the end of it, that this is a temporary thing. And this is one of the terms that come up a lot, is this is about mindfulness.
Yeah.
And a lot of mindfulness comes from being to accept situations for exactly as they are, realizing that they are temporary, personal.
Yeah.
And I think those are part of developing a positive attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I've always, like, well, not always, but I've kind of seen, you know, how it mentions that, like, if you chase happiness, you're just basically, you know, like, you're going to be disappointed a lot. And it's like, I kind of always saw it as though, positivity is essentially, nourishing your soul, essentially, you know, cause just, you'll have a better experience overall if you can think more that way. Whereas, like, happiness is like getting a piece of chocolate. You know, it's like, it's awesome. You love it. You feel great because you've got that, you know, pleasure center working in your brain. But a little bit later, you're like, I want another piece of chocolate, you know? Whereas the other, it's like, you know, if you go and eat a meal, you generally, I mean, some people maybe, but you know what I mean? Like 10 minutes later, you generally aren't like, I need to eat another meal because you're full. You know, you're good. You've gotten the nourishment you need. Mm. So the chocolate just kind of makes you want more and more and more. And you'll either, you'll either gorge on it or not get enough of it ever. You know, it's just such a futile chase. And like I said, if you go back and listen to, I think we titled that episode Happy-ish, I think, didn't we? Where we talked about it. You know, go back and listen to that one, because we talk about, there was a TV show, if people listening haven't seen it, try to look it up. It's a really interesting, pay attention to the characters, don't necessarily worry about the, you know, whether it's a good or bad show, but pay attention to the characters and their philosophies. Anyway, yeah.
What's the name of the show?
Happy-ish.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. That's where, when I first brought it up, that's where the word came from, because it was, you know, that's really what it turns out to be is.
I forgot that was the actual name of the show.
Yeah. But even chasing that's, you know, a fool's errand, but it's, you know.
Yes.
You're still better off if you can just shift, again, because, when you're hungry, eat food, don't eat chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
because in the end, you'll be happier. Hopefully. Maybe not.
Well, with that, there's a little bit more to the article, but I think that's a good place to stop. I did want to mention that the name of the writer is Danny DePiero, and the article was from positivelypresent.typepad.com, and I'm sure we'll have the link in the notes of the show. But she actually wrote a book called The Positively Present Guide to Life, which looks very interesting, as well as she lists a couple things from Dan Harris, who has a series of 10% Happier, How I Tamed the Voice in My Head, and Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, a 10% Happier book.
And if I'm not mistaken, the 10% Happier, I have an app on my phone called 10% Happier that has to do with meditation and different stuff. I'm pretty sure they're related.
Probably the same guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Dan Harris had something to do with it.
It looks really interesting.
Mm.
So. Well, with that, folks, I don't know. I think I'm pretty good. How about you guys?
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, cool. Well, with that, everyone, if you would like to join us, if you have an idea that you would like to hear us talk about, if you have constructive criticism that you would like to share, I almost forgot what I was going to say there, please let us know. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me directly through Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. I'm also on Facebook. You can find us through the Facebook page. You can shoot us an email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. And you can also shoot us an email and check out our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And for you, Heno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at IdaHeno, and you can find me on Facebook at Heno Heiter. And if you happen to enjoy the television show Gotham, we're going to have our 100th episode of Gotham Lights podcast, which is the other podcast I do and I don't talk about much on here.
Which you should, because it's great.
But we are going to release an episode next Sunday, so I may not get a chance to podcast with The Crazy Life next week, but in a couple weeks I'll be back.
All right.
How about you, Brian? How can they reach you?
You can also find the show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. My other podcast can be found at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work. You can find us over on Facebook at facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. What am I missing here? Oh, there it is. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check that site out and see if there's any other shows you might like. If you, if you'd like to help the show out, we'd appreciate it if you're using Apple Podcasts to rate, review, and subscribe, if you haven't already. If you're using Stitcher or Spotify, please use the like or share options, or whatever podcast app you're using. Use the like or share options if you would. Or also, maybe retweet our posts on Twitter or share the stuff on Facebook. We would greatly appreciate it. The next part is, we're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind. We're just three people talking about our opinions and our experiences. If you feel as though you need help, please reach out. There's tons of people out there that would, they're more than happy to help. You just have to ask for it. Please don't self-diagnose, and please don't self-medicate, because you might be medicating yourself or doing something for the, wrong condition. So go to the doctor, get the estimate, as I always say, and then you can come up with a game plan from there. If you feel as though you may harm yourself or others, please, definitely reach out to someone, and please try not to be alone. Call a friend, call 911, take yourself to the hospital if you have to, whatever it is, and tell them, you're having a mental health crisis. If you catch yourself, writing suicide notes or planning how you would, harm others or whatever, please, definitely get help at that point. That's a huge red flag. And, hopefully you can get help before something bad happens. And lastly, reach out to somebody. If you haven't talked to somebody for a while, reach out to them, say hi, or tell them you appreciate them, tell them you love them. Just, reach out, because you just never know. You might make somebody's day, or you may save their life. And that's all I got.
Awesome. And with all of the songs and all of the funness that's out there about being happy, there's one just recently that was produced in the last 5 years or so, but that goes back to the 70s with "Come On, Get Happy." There's so many songs about it. Something that we always strive for and we chase. Just use this episode as a reminder. Let's think positively, and let's enjoy those happy moments when we get them, but know that it's okay. They'll come back again. It's Mother Day. So with that, folks, have a great week. Talk to you later.